How is it going, everybody? This is Joe Snow here, and I wanted to do a deck tech video on the recent version of Scoia'tael Control that I've used to pilot over 5,000 MMR in Gwent. As you guys can see, right now we are sitting a little bit above 5,000. We're top 41 worldwide, and in North America where I am, that's good enough for 7th place on the ranking board. So what I want to do is I want to pull open the deck and go over a couple of the ideas of the deck, the choices, exactly what's going on here. So while this is sort of a standard Scoia'tael Control basic shell, there are a few differences that really separate my list from the others, and I in particular want to talk about those. Just to give a quick overview of the plan of the deck, the plan is basically to remove all of your opponent's important units, get them off of the board, and then win the game in round 3 with a giant buffed up either Brienne or the Sappers. Now, why we chose the Sappers and Brienne is the Sappers have the ability to ambush, so it makes it very difficult for your opponent to interact with. Even though they can be awkward once in a while due to their 2-turn timer, I still think having ambush cards in the bronze slot in particular is very, very important for the consistency of the deck. And we chose Brienne as the last card as A. It can result in the largest overall power swings, provided you're able to maintain card advantage. You can play it last. Your opponent's not going to be able to interact with you anyway. It has the highest overall potential. If you buff it up to a 16, it can be up to a 32-point swing. And notably, you can also use to kill annoying things on the last turn, such as the Grave Hags that have gotten very popular on the ladder, that your opponent's going to try and finish the game off with, and that's likely to be their last play. So going into some specific details of the deck, we can start down here with the Dispel Package. I think that the 3 first lights are just pretty standard in any Elven mercenary deck. They're very powerful, deck thinning tools, and I don't think they require a ton of explanation. The 2 Owl's Thunder look very strange here. Most decks are running some combination of Lacerates and or Manticore Venom in the slot, and I simply don't think this is correct. Particularly near the top of the ladder, what you're facing off against is a large percentage of consumed monster decks. Now, the Owl's Thunder is the simple best bronze card for removing the Vran Warriors and the Arrakis Behemoths. And these are sort of the core engine cards of their deck. So the fact that I can deal 7 to 1 unit in particular, just getting them off of the board before they have a chance to start generating value from them is very, very important. And that's why it's in the slot over something like Manticore Venom. Now, the Venoms are okay against the Henselt decks. There's a possibility to 2-for-1 their 4 strength towers that grow, but I do believe the Thunder is much more suited for this purpose. Usually you're not going to get 2-for-1 there anyway, and the number of monster decks are far greater than the number of Henselt decks. Another interesting perk of this card is you can pick off the odd Ocfist here and there that you do still run across occasionally, although they are far less popular than they used to be. Aeromancy is another card that's not particularly popular in a lot of the mainstay Scoia'tael Control lists, and I do think this card's very powerful. Once again, this deck is teched heavily to beat monsters, and many of the monsters' decks are running Catachans and Ghouls. This has the ability to just completely shut them down. It also has the ability to make a big tempo swing round 1. You're almost always going to be facing up against the Crones in round 1, and a lot of times the opponent will try and put you in an awkward situation and pass early, where they don't think you're going to be able to overcome in 1 card. And Aeromancy just has the ability to completely blow that out, reducing their 20 strength set of silvers down to a measly 3 strength for a 17-point swing, assuming they haven't played anything else in the back. And that ability is just very, very powerful. Scorch is as well as this has, plenty of utility in other matchups. The odd Queensguard deck you see, it's great against full test. It's not super powerful in the Scoia'tael mirror, but if you can maintain a card advantage, you can use it as your last play to strip all of the strength off of, whatever unit they chose to buff, be it a Brienne or be it an ambush. Whatever it is, weather's one of the very few things that can interact with cards while they're still in ambush, as when it's going to flip, it's just going to go down to 1 strength. So this card certainly has its uses, and I'm a big fan of it. Scorch is sort of the backbone of this deck. It's one of the main reasons why this deck works, particularly its interaction with Oglace, that you can always go and get another copy of it, and this just allows you to take care of the most problematic unit that your opponent has. This card's invaluable. I would not play the deck without it. The same goes for Yavin. Would not play the deck without it. He's your spy. He's amazing. He works even better with weather, as you can finish off problematic units with abilities in a row. You can weather down some Neckers, remove them from the board, and then when they spawn more Neckers, that's going to reduce the overall amount they have in their deck. This card is just super, super powerful, and yeah, play Yavin. He's a spy. I don't think he requires a ton of explanation. So let's start looking into our units. The other mercenaries, as I was talking about briefly before, are just one of the best bronze units in the entire game. And I believe that you should be playing 3 of them in almost every build of Squayatel right now. The sappers are for consistency purposes to give me a solid target to buff with the dragoons, as the dragoons are one of the centerpieces of this deck, allowing me to increase the strength of cards that are hard to interact with, get extra bonuses from it in Brienne, or just transfer strength between rounds in a worst case scenario. If you don't have either an ambush card or a Brienne that's particularly great to buff, you can win a round, and in the round you don't particularly care about winning, drop your 5 strength bronze and transfer 4 strength over to the next round, which is super helpful in a lot of positions. So the Brienne, as I was saying, I believe she is just the single most powerful way to make use of the buffs. There is certainly a case for playing True Reveal as well. I have toyed with that idea as another card that's super hard to interact with. The Brienne's a bit higher risk, high reward, but particularly due to the interaction with Grave Hag and being able to kill that as my last play, I found Brienne invaluable, so I'm sticking with that at the current time. Roach is a very interesting card in this deck. He's mostly in the deck for the interaction with Melva, as this allows Melva to effectively be an 8-strength gold loyal spy if you lose the die roll and you wind up going first, which is sort of disgusting and one of the most powerful interactions in the entirety of the game. Roach also has other synergies with Saskia, and is all around just a fine value card. That being said, if it wasn't for the interaction with Melva, I don't think this deck would be playing Roach, but the Melva interaction is just so powerful that the Roach is warranted. The cleaver was a sort of a last-minute inclusion in my climb from like 47 or 4,800 to over 5K. As Neckers were becoming more and more prominent, I was seeing the odd Morkvarg even here and there, and the ability to unlock my own Roach comes up from time to time. So the cleaver is just an all-around value card. Playing the Bruverhoog hero, you're sort of setting up a toolbox anyway, and the fact that I can always instantly access him when the need arises is just very, very powerful. There's also a case for Cyprian Wiley in this spot, as Cyprian is also very good at dealing with opposing roaches and opposing Neckers. He's not quite as good at unlocking your own units and or dealing with Morkvarg. So I prefer the additional flexibility over the 1 extra stat point and the 3 damage that he can clear off of the board. This isn't hard and fast. This very well might go back and forth in the future, and I think either choice is fine, but I do like having one of these type of effects in the deck. Igni. Igni is a card seen in almost none of the standard Scoia'tael control lists, and this is in large response to 2 things. One, the prevalence of the monsters matchup. As I was saying, this deck's teched heavily to beat monsters, and having additional Scorch type of effects is just fantastic here. Igni is super powerful there. B, the other important thing is in the Scoia'tael mirror match, your Scorches often don't do a whole lot. So what happens in round 1 quite frequently, particularly at the top of the ladder, is when one player Yavins, the other player is pretty much forced into playing their Yavin so that each player has a 14 strength unit on the side. And this is to prevent the opposing player from being able to get 14 points of value off of their Scorch. Now, you can really throw a wrench in this entire plan by playing an Igni round 1 to get very solid value off of blowing their Yavin up. And then if you still have a Melva, you can attempt to Melva theirs back. Sometimes you do free up their Scorch to get their value against you, which is fine. You come out ahead in that exchange. And the Igni just also has invaluable uses in all of the other matchups. He's great against Skellige. He's great against Northern Realms. The card has just been very, very good for me here. And I don't think he's in a lot of the Scoia'tael lists right now, but if you're looking to beat monsters, which was one of the large considerations when I was building this deck, then I think he is absolutely correct to play. Saskia is kind of our sledgehammer of the deck. He is just a big, dumb stat stick, and he's really, really good at what he does. If you have a Saskia in your hand, it just increases your reach, particularly for round one, by such a huge extent. Your opponent can very easily pass, thinking that there's absolutely no way you can overcome in one, and you can just jam a Saskia, oftentimes for 25 plus points. I've had 30-point Saskias before. It's not out of the realm of possibility. The card is just very, very powerful, as well as the added utility of being able to finish off one-strength units to get them off the board. I've been very, very happy with Saskia and likely wouldn't change anything. The Dragoons, as we talked about, are sort of the heart of this deck. This is how we set up for our round 3 win condition, as we're mostly fighting an attrition and card advantage war, hoping to make a big push with something like Saskia to win round 1. Round 2, we want to drain out their hand in most circumstances, as there's a lot of synergy-based decks running around, and then we just want to plop down 1 or 2 gigantic units in the 3rd round. And the Sappers are, and the Dragoons are just amazing at this purpose. I would not play the deck without them. I think this is just too core to the strategy of the deck. Now, these archers, this is the one card in the deck I'm not 100% on in any real way, shape, or form. They're mainly in there due to lack of better options, is what I would say. What's going on with these guys is we needed 2 more bronze in the decks, and I felt like they needed to be units. I just needed X number of units to feel comfortable piloting the deck. These are effectively an 8-strength unit in most circumstances as a 5 that deals 3. And the important part about this is that they only stand at 5, even though they're technically 8 strength in like 90-something% of spots, because they fly under your Scorch. I had experimented with stuff like Hawker Smuggler, the 7-drop bronze that bounces between rows. What's this guy's name? I'll go find him for you. I've experimented with the Dobelthana Marksman as well. Nothing quite fit the bill, just as good as this. And although they are sort of mediocre, I do not like the fact that they're not agile. It reduces the flexibility I have. I think they're the lesser of all evils, and an 8-strength unit that stands at 5 to go under my Scorches is just valuable enough. Plus, there is a non-0% chance of the time that they're going to allow you to set up an even better Scorch or Igni. This is something that just happens sometimes. Not super often, but 1 out of every 4, 1 out of every 5 games, you get some real value off of that. And that's certainly something to consider. I think that's the factor that pushed them over the edge. Melva, as we were talking about earlier, is kind of busted. The ability to just steal card advantage away from your opponent on an empty board, or a board where they only played a gold with no roach, or let's say they start an operator, some sort of relentless unit, being able to just play what's effectively an 8-strength loyal spy protected behind a gold body is already disgustingly busted. Past that, being able to return their spy to their hand, or if they get a 25-strength Ekimara that you don't feel like dealing with anymore, you can just send it back to their hand. The uses of this card are near endless, and the more I play with this card, the more uses I keep coming up for it. You can just sculpt your entire strategy for a whole round based around the power of this card, and I would not play Scoia'tael without it. This is my pick for best Scoia'tael card, maybe best gold card in the entire game. I'm a little biased, granted, as I am definitely a main Scoia'tael player. Aglace is amazing. She's kind of another Bruver Hoog, right? She is just the toolboxiest of toolbox cards. Whatever effect you need more of, she gets you. Do you need more dudes on the board? Go First Light again. Did they clear weather on your backbreaking rain or frost effect? Well, do it again. Do you need another Scorch because they played yet another giant monster? Just Scorch him down. Did they have the 3rd Vran Warrior? Man, that was annoying. Looks like it's dead now. She just does so much for this deck, increases the overall consistency and the flexibility by such a wide margin. Her low strength is, it's a thing, but the overall power level is just so high. Also, she pairs very nicely with Roach to create an actual reasonable-sized board presence. And this is, I would not play any version of this deck without the card. I don't think you can really replace it with anything. Some of these other cards you can replace and make a slightly worse or budget version of the deck if you don't have access to a full collection. Aglace is not one of those cards. She's just too essential to the core strategy of what's going on, and overall too powerful. She is one of the other cards that really, really make this deck tick. So that is the general strategy for the deck. As far as mulliganing and stuff, the first priority mulligans are obviously getting rid of your first lights. And besides first lights and Roach, the only cards you really, really don't want to see in hand, Bran is one of the best cards to have in your hand. Notably, she's usually the first card that you want to choose as your buff target for Dragoons, except against Scoia'tael. Against Scoia'tael, you would actually prefer a Sapper in most situations, due to the fact that it's really hard to guarantee that you'll have card advantage and thus the last say. The Sappers are actually much more protected. And much harder to interact with for most Scoia'tael decks. And if you do wind up losing card advantage, something like a last play Oglace into their Scorch that they burned earlier really does have a lot of blowout potential against you, so you want to be careful of that. You always want to have one card to buff in your hand, as if you get stuck having to use your Dragoons to just buff an Archer or something like that, you're not getting your full potential out of the card. You really want to put it on a hard to interact with body or something that's going to generate additional value off of it. Just transferring the strength and putting it on something like an Archer, while good enough once in a while, is far from optimal and not really where you want to be. So you want to keep that in mind. Mercenaries are super, super powerful to have in your hand. They're great due to the context, based on the context of your hand. It's very rare that you wind up mulliganing them away. There are odd situations, and you have to be able to be flexible with a deck like this and think on the fly. So there's really no hard and fast rules, but in general, you really, really want these round one. There's not a single gold in this deck that I would mulligan in like 95+% of situations. You generally just want to keep all of your golds. Possibly you can get rid of an igni if you're playing a non-monsters, non-Skellige deck, and you're missing a key piece like something to buff. That situation does come up, but it's very, very rare. The archers are one of your weaker cards. It's fine to just go ahead and get rid of them. As far as the spells, you really, really want to be careful, because there is some mercenary RNG involved in this deck. Due to the presence of Scorch and, more importantly, the Aeromancy, if they're not in your opening hand and they're just floating around in your deck, you have to be very careful and know to take calculated risks. For that reason, in particular, I like to have the Aeromancy in my hand, and I only mulligan it away in rare situations. The Yaven is also another card that you really, really want in your opening hand, and I almost never mulligan away. This is due to the fact that Yaven, you're going to want to play it every single game. Like, regardless, every single game, you're going to want to play a Yaven at some point. And when you have it in your hand, that frees up your hero power. Many of times when he's stuck in your deck, you're going to have to wind up using your Bruverhoog ability to search out your Yaven just to go get that +1 card advantage. And when you have it in your hand, that opens this up to be a much, much more flexible ability. So keeping the Yaven in your opening hand for that reason alone is very, very powerful. So if you guys have any questions, please let me know in the comments. This is my first YouTube video, so bear with me. We're only going to get better as time goes on. I'm also going to link my stream in there, where I will be playing the deck. I'm going to be playing, later today, next week as well. I stream at www.twitch.tv/joesnow, JOESN0W. There will be a link there. I usually start streaming about 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And yeah, if you guys want to come check out the deck, ask me some questions. I'm always willing to answer questions about my decks, help you guys out with your decks. It's kind of how I run my stream. And I'm usually highly analytical when I'm streaming, and I try and make it fun and educational for the players watching. So I want to thank you guys for stopping by. I appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, hit like, hit follow. Awesome. Thank you guys. Enjoy the deck. Go kick some ass on ladder with it. And I'm going for that #1 spot. I will catch you guys later. Have a good day.